Member Bradley?
Here.
Member Muschetti?
Here.
Member Almond? Member Almond?
Here.
Director Miller?
Here.
Chair Evian?
Absent.
Member Antu?
Absent.
Member Barash?
Here.
Member Riley?
Absent.
Member Daugherty?
Here.
All right, so we will move on to public expression of non-agendized items. Do we have any? Committee matters. 3A, approval of the minutes from the December 20th, 2023 regular meeting. Does anybody have any comments, questions, or changes to the minutes?
Almond has read the minutes, and I make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Second. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You got it.
I'll second.
All right, any public comments? Any committee member comments? Hearing none, we will do a vote roll call.
Member Bradley?
Yes.
Member Muschetti?
Yes.
Member Almond?
Yes?
Member Director Miller?
Yes.
Member Daugherty?
Yes.
All right.
Member Barash?
Yes.
All right, we'll move on to 3B, the February 2024 Measure B financial report. I'm going to hand this over to May Payne, who is our fiscal person for Measure B now that Mary Alice has retired. She also is going to quickly go over the proposed budget for Measure B for fiscal year 24-25.
Is her microphone? I know it's on, but.
I'm just turned up, right?
Testing? Testing. Oh, there we go. May Payne, Fiscal Manager for Behavioral Health. First, I'll open it up to any questions on the financial report, and then we'll go into the budget. Are there any questions I can answer for you? Seeing none, I will note that the $7 million loan for the behavioral health wing of the correctional facility has not happened. The journal has not happened, so the funds are still in Measure B. I'll plan on updating the report once they move, and I'll notify you all at the meeting. For the budget, if you all want to go to that page, I can run down any specifics. I'll highlight the contracts. We will only be having the RCS aftercare and the RCS crisis respite contract. And then the funds for the PUF are in there as well for the construction, and those numbers are from GSA.
Sorry. Tell me what GSA.
General Services Agency.
That's what I thought, but I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, you look at these things all the time, we don't.
I'm open to any suggestions on what would make the report a little bit easier for folks who aren't looking at them all the time.
Joe, is there something you wanted her to walk through?
No, it's just, after a certain point, I get flunked. Not their fault.
There's nothing out of the ordinary in this report.
That would be my question, that if there is something out of the ordinary, an extreme expense or an overrun on the budget, that would be the thing. Other than that, we've worked on this budget so much, it's somewhat autopilot. But I appreciate you, and you have big shoes to fill.
I know,
Yeah.
very big shoes to fill behind Mary
She did a very
Alice.
good job, so thank you for the presentation today.
Of course.
And it's nice that you
Figured that would be the only question.
Yeah, because that sounds like it's in abeyance right now.
Yeah.
I appreciate that all the information's here and available. Thank you, May.
Of course.
Any other comments or questions on the report?
I'm just going to ask a question. So the NAMI funds that were not used, they're just back in the general budget, is that correct?
That is correct.
I just wanted to make sure. Thank you, and
Yes.
for clarification, thank you very much.
Yes.
Any other committee members' comments or questions? Any public comments or questions? All right, hearing none, if everyone is good, we'll move on to 3C. Update and discussion regarding Measure B related items at the Board of Supervisors meetings. There were none since the last meeting. There hasn't been anything that's gone to the Board of Supervisors since the last meeting, so nothing to report on that agenda item. Any comments or questions? Any public comments or questions? All right, hearing none, we will go to 3D. An update on the current projects for Measure B. You'll see the Behavioral Health Regional Training Center. Nothing has changed there. It is being utilized. We'd love to see it utilized more. No additional funds have gone into the training center since we bought the last time. We did get some additional tables that we approved so that there would be more tables available. Nothing else since then, minus the general budget upkeeps for anything we have to do maintenance-wise, Comcast electricity. Yeah.
Do we charge other entities for using the building?
Yes, we do.
And so it does bring in some money?
Yes, it does. Yes. No items recently passed at the Board of Supervisors, which I recently said, community education awareness and support, that used to be NAMI, which we no longer have that contract, so we'll remove that from this report. The crisis assessment and psychiatric hospitalization aftercare, you can see the numbers there. This is a service that is used pretty regularly, and as a reminder, this is for non-Medi-Cal clients, so clients that have private insurance or no insurance are able to utilize these funds. And Redwood does utilize those funds pretty regularly for those services. This ERT information is listed there. It is used and being used regularly, which is good news. The Fort Bragg Crisis Respite is also doing very well and providing services there that were desperately needed and able to meet some of those needs. I do hear at times it'd be nice to have a couple more beds there, but nice to know that we have that facility now open and running and have for a little bit. The crisis response teams are operating, and they are continuing to look for ways to increase the number of individuals on that team, so always recruiting. Also, the law changed in January to have 24/7 mobile crisis response, which has changed a little bit about how behavioral health does crisis response, with a response with two mental health individuals and not always responding with law enforcement. We are still building up those teams. We've been working with RCS, Redwood Community Services, to augment our team with their team to be able to build that up to really be 24/7 throughout the county. Mental Health Treatment Act audit. I am going to note that we had a subcommittee. We have never gotten a report back from that subcommittee, and so I'm not sure what we want to do with that. That's still on our waiting to hear from the subcommittee. So, and I think most of the subcommittee members are not here today, so maybe we can try to ask them next time we meet what's up with that, because we do need to do an additional audit, and that audit was on hold pending the subcommittee making some recommendations. Psychiatric Health Facility, General Services Agency has been working on the request for proposals for the construction part of building that facility. I keep hearing around April that RFP should go out. I have not heard anything new, but I will try to follow up and have more update to add.
Can we ask GSA to be on the agenda for the May meeting then?
Yeah.
So we'll have an idea of where they are, because it's certainly, the money's there and the entire county is waiting for the shovel to go in the ground. Mm-hmm. And if it's strictly a bureaucratic logjam, then we as citizens have a responsibility to talk to our elected representatives and try to clear the logjam. So, thank you.
Yeah, I will ask them to be at the May meeting, and I will also ask them for additional information for the report out in March. For next month, monthly, we send that report out. So I will ask for them for more detail to
Thank you.
provide in the monthly report out.
Thanks.
Yes, I will do that. All right, any other committee members, comments, questions?
Can I ask, please, have you noticed, as Director of Behavioral Health, that the crisis residential has helped? Do you notice things working? That's what I would like to ask.
Yes, it does. It has worked, and it has definitely come into play when there have been some individuals that needed care after the psych hospital, and also for individuals that weren't right at the level of needing psychiatric care, but really needed an alternative. And they have been able to really house individuals and provide the services needed. So it actually has been providing a good service in our community.
Thank you.
I recently, and I'm not sure if this is the right place, but with that regard, I spoke with Dr. Trotter last month at a public event. And I usually don't ever ask a public question if I don't know the answer. But I asked a public question, I got an answer which I wasn't expecting, not the best answer in the world. For all of us who remember when Measure B was passed, one of the reasons that many community members supported it was for the purpose of getting our emergency department rooms emptied so they can be used for people who are victims of other illnesses and injuries other than mental illness. And I asked Dr. Trotter if he is seeing an increase in vacancy of emergency department rooms because of what Measure B is doing, and he said absolutely not. He said there's still an overabundance of emergency rooms being filled by victims of mental illness. And I'm not sure how we could quantify that without getting somebody from Adventist here to clearly say that we're on a trend of lowering those visits or not. And it was just really frustrating for me. I'll never ask that public question again without knowing the answer. But do you have any thoughts on that as a director?
I think that, crisis ebbs and flows. And just because we're going to add a psychiatric health facility, that doesn't mean we're going to have no one that ends up in our emergency room needing a psychiatric bed. Because if we have 16 beds and all of our beds are full, they're now going to be in there waiting for a bed somewhere else. So there's always going to be, unless we get to a point that we have enough beds across the state of California and that people can go straight from a cop car into a psychiatric health facility, that doesn't happen, right? So psych hospitals still require a medical clearance. So I can't take somebody on a hold and then bring them to a psych hospital. I can't even leave them in our lobbies, right? They're going to say, where's your medical clearance? So there is always, at this point, unless we see changes in the way psych facilities operate, that there is always going to need to be they are going to go to the ER, get their medical clearance, and then go to the facility. So there's always going to be a pass-through unless something changes. It would be nice to see a change where the facilities could do their own medical clearance and they didn't have to hit our emergency rooms first. There's also times when you can't find a bed in California. Generally, when we can't find a bed, most counties can't find a bed. So it's usually when they're full, they're full. And so then we're all fighting for the same beds. It doesn't mean we're going to see less 5150s. I'd love to say we're seeing less 5150s. I'm not sure that we're seeing less 5150s, especially after COVID. People aren't doing well after COVID, and we know as we go and start seeing potential deficits and money becomes, and struggles and stress become issues, we often see more people not doing well. And so we're in the middle of, we knew that mental health was going to be a big issue after COVID. It is. We're seeing that. I'll also see that psych hospitals don't want to take high-level clients. So they say they're too acute for us. And yes, it's a very,
that's normal.
They're too young, they're too acute. And so then what happens, unfortunately, they sit in our emergency rooms waiting for a facility, some facility to say, finally, we'll take that individual. And I have asked the question many times, I thought you were a psychiatric health facility or a psychiatric acute hospital. I thought that's the client you're supposed to serve. So they don't always take our clients, and then they sit there longer, which makes an ER bed not available. So.
And I appreciate that, but there's other things, there's other pieces of the puzzle that we've filled in.
Right.
And that being the mobile crisis, I hope, is reducing the emergency response cases that go directly to the emergency departments, as well as our residential crisis of the repeat clients that we have, I hope is reducing the number of people who are going into the emergency department for emergency situations. And as far as always having to go to the hospital, of course that's going to happen. When you have a violent 5150 or anything where law enforcement is going to have to stay, or if there's an underlying medical reason for the person to be in hospital, that's going to happen. But as far as hopefully reducing the number of emergency responses, because that's the way we've always done it, that's what I hope we're going to be reducing.
If you looked at our numbers, the number of 5150s have reduced over the last couple of years. And if you looked at the dual response, you would see the number of 5150s that were placed last year versus, the prior year versus last year, you would see a reduction. We know that dual response is reducing the number of individuals that need to be put on a hold. So we are able to see those, but I think where the hospitals are starting to feel, and I don't want to speak for them, but where they're feeling a little bit like we're still having people, is people unfortunately are staying longer, and they're not just an in and out. And so then if you have someone staying there longer, it also impacts your beds. But we can see across the county through RCS's numbers and dual response that we have seen the number of 5150s decreasing. That doesn't mean it doesn't still have an impact on our hospitals, unfortunately. And
that's a good response. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Madrone House started out as just crisis respite for the purposes of anybody who comes in on a 5150. If they feel they can get along without a locked facility, at least temporarily, then they're moved there with a sitter. And that was dependent on Valtakis providing the medical care. And this was, I'm sorry, I'm mixing things. So there's crisis respite that takes mental health patients on the 5150. There was another need, and Val started taking care of, they call it medical respite, where people have medical issues that don't really need acute hospitalization. And she actually got as many as 3 beds at a time where people needed a place to go. And some of that has to do with hospitals that have patients that have avoidable days. They're not a safe discharge, but they really don't need an acute hospital, and they could go to Madrone House. But now the medical respite portion of that is gone. And so we've lost that capability. However, there are 2 different contingents. One is Adventist Health through a fellow named Jeremy Malin, and he is starting a medical respite facility that'll have about 10 beds, and I honestly don't know how far that is away from being functional.
In our county?
In our county.
Okay.
And there's a second one on the coast with Jessica Grinberg, if you may or may not know her, and she has a building that's huge. It's like 30 or 40,000 square feet.
Where is this?
This is right across from the hospital in Fort Bragg. And it's a sports facility, but it's a gym. It's losing people. There's a swimming pool in there as well that's going to be filled in and used for, she can use it. She can use all of that area that she wants. And so she's going to start with 10 beds, but she could go up as high as 50 beds. I think what she really needs is some support. Like if the county realized they're going to need so many beds just as a holding place. Like there's a fellow that I'm aware of right now that is demented, and he was at building bridges, and they took him to the hospital because he was too high need, and he left the hospital. He just walked, and he was found wandering in the middle of town, and they paid the Adult Protective Services had paid for a bed in a motel for a month. Now this would be, I think, cheaper than that. It would provide food, and it would provide a sitter, And it could be as many as 50 beds if that was needed. But I just wanted to mention that this is another possibility that some of us are working on. Mhm.
And that would take people from all over the county.
Yes. You know, and as I said, I mean, I think one thing that would help is if there was a known number of beds that could be used by some agency or some facility, and that could be provided as support, because she's just getting started on, I mean, I think it could be as little as months out to be operational. You know, it would be helpful if she knew exactly what.
That's a huge building.
Yes, it is.
I didn't know it was going down the drain for a gym.
Yeah.
She wouldn't be able to take 5150s because they have to be in a certain type of facility, but she could take medical respite.
Well, 5150s went to Madrone House. Was that the
They'd
same?
have to be pulled off their 5150.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
If
yes.
they get rescinded, yes.
Well, that's what they did, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's only one facility in our county that qualifies currently to house 5150s if they're not the hospital,
What's that?
the jail. And so we don't want to be sending them to the jail.
Yeah.
So hopefully it'll be a Title 22 facility when the psychiatric health facility will be the other authorized facility. But once they're placed on a hold, they have to be within certain types of facilities, and that's your hospitals, and then they can transport to that higher level of care. And the jail is not the option. But for those that could be pulled off their 5150s and could use a lower level of care,
Right.
then a medical respite might be an option as long as there's a psychiatrist attached to those facilities. But we do have a growing need of dementia.
Yeah.
So I think that we definitely would be nice to have an alternative placement.
Mm-hmm. So the question, my question is, this facility at the jail that'll be for mental health, will that be for 5150? I mean, could it be a better place for 5150?
No.
No.
No, because
Okay.
you have to have committed a crime to enter the jail. And we don't want to assume that everyone that gets put on a hold, 95%
No,
of people
right.
that are on a
No,
hold
I-
haven't committed a crime.
I understand. So
Maybe
this
even
is,
higher.
so the mental health,
But they haven't been.
this new mental health building is going to be, it's going to be jail. It's going to be,
It's going to be a psychiatric health facility, but the jail will have a mental health, behavioral health wing, and that will be for those people that are in custody to get mental health and substance use treatment while they're in custody.
okay.
So
But
And
my son ended up at Santa Rita because he had done something, and they realized that he was psychotic, and they moved him out of general population into their mental health wing, which is a really good one. And he got reached, he had to take his meds, and he got cared for.
Uh-huh.
And then when he turned the corner, they
Yeah.
put him back in the general population.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah, presently, mental health, people struggling with mental illness who become incarcerated are spread out all over the jail, all throughout the jail, in different wings. And so it becomes more challenging to provide quality care, right? So if they're all focused in one area, I think that's the goal.
I see. Uh-huh. Thank you.
all right, any comments or questions from the public? Any additional comments or questions from the commissioners? All right, hearing none, we will move on to 3E, and this is nomination of a vice chair. Sherry Ebbian is technically our new chair this year. Unfortunately, she's absent today, but we do need to have a nomination for vice chair. The vice chair serves for 2 years as vice chair, and then chair for 2 years. So Sherry will be our chair for 2 years, and then our vice chair would step in. Do we have any nominations?
Madam Chair, I would. First, I'm going to ask one of our newest members, Joe Bradley, if she would be willing to accept a nomination and accept ultimate role of being a vice chair for 2 years. Is there a commitment for 2 years and then another commitment for chair of this Measure B committee? Would you accept that?
I said I would accept vice chair. I did not realize that role, but it was a hard role in the chair. I think I can do it. I chair a lot of other things, so yeah,
Well, with that in mind, then I'm certainly open to other nominations, but I will be nominating Member Bradley as the vice chair of the Measure B committee.
I second that.
All right, any other nominations? All right, so any public comments? All right, hearing none, we'll go to a roll call vote.
Member Bradley,
Good girl. That's your job. See, you know it already.
Member Moschetti,
Yes.
Member Almond,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Member Daugherty,
Yes.
Member Brash,
Yes.
All right, that passes. Congratulations, Joe, you are our new vice chair.
And Director Almond is gonna go home with me and tell my husband.
I will call Fred and let him know.
And guess what? You get to sit here. On camera all the time.
All right, so we're going to go to item 4A, committee member report outs regarding any items of general interest. Claudia, do you want to call out the members and see if they have any interest, anything interesting to report out? You have to do a roll call for 4A.
Member Bradley,
No, thank you.
Member Moschetti,
Nothing to report.
Member Almond,
Nothing to report. However, I would certainly like for everyone to talk about, or to be aware of what we talked about before about, we now have a representative from the auditors committee. So at the end of this director's report, if we could give her a microphone so we could hear a little bit about this, I'd appreciate it. But nothing to report. Thank you.
I concur.
Director Miller,
Nothing to report.
Member Daugherty,
Nothing to report.
Member Brash.
Nothing to report.
All right.
All right, so before we close up, I will hand it over to Acting Auditor Controller Sarah Pierce.
Hello, so yeah, I'm Sarah Pierce, the Acting Auditor Controller since October. And so this week I applied to fill the position of the auditor role on this board. I believe it goes in front of the Board of Supervisors. I'm not sure when that will be. And then if they approve, I can then become a voting member. So I am happy to be here.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yes.
We appreciate it.
Very much, Sarah. And let me just tell you a little bit of the history of when this was put in front of the voters. 11 people where it was clearly identified who would be acting up, who would be making up this meeting. And the auditor controller, her representative, was included, not for the purpose of using your financial skills as much so as being a person who's oversees government spending and may be able to give us some good advice, as well as your role as a citizen in this community, because you have neighbors and friends that may be involved in mental health as victims and so forth. And so any opinions you have on any of that is welcome in this committee, anything.
Okay, thank you.
I would just really quickly like to add, I don't know if the public realizes all that goes into putting on any kind of public meeting. And so I just want to say thank you to fiscal representation. Sarah, thank you for showing up here today, and support staff, IT and admin staff. We appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, any public comments? Any other community member comments? Hearing none, we will adjourn the meeting, and thank you guys.